everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cracking the Code. This is number 24 on the list here. So, really getting up there. I'm joined by Chris Bowen, ClearData's founder and CISO. How are you today, Chris?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. Well, thanks for joining us again today. You were recently added, congratulations, to the Forbes Tech Council, where you share a lot of your insights and you communicate with different colleagues. And congrats on your recent publication as well. We'll link to
Yeah.
that as well underneath this video. But a lot of really insightful and good conversations are happening in there. And so we were chatting, and we thought we would use this video as a platform for a little Q&A session here to kind of hit a lot of topics all at once rather than drill down into something specific.
Yeah, this is what do they call it? It's fall, a cornucopia of topics. Is that
I
what
like it.
we're doing?
I
Okay.
like it as well. And also next month is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So this is a good, kind of preparation as we think about cybersecurity in general, some of the recent breaches, some of the recent IT outages, and everything that we've, already been talking about. So I think this sets the stage well for that as well. All right, we'll dive right into the first questions. So how should healthcare providers balance the need for patient data accessibility with stringent data protection requirements?
There's a couple of strategies you can employ to kind of have the best of both worlds, if you will. Role-based access controls, you've heard about them. Really, that what that means is, should you be able to access everything that you want? Probably not. You still need to balance patient privacy with the ability to access what you need to access for a patient. There are lots of different ways to determine whether something is being accessed appropriately. So lots of audits, a lot of log reviews, making sure that you have logs that track what's happening in a system is
Mhm.
very important. And then, of course, we can't neglect to talk about the patient responsibility, and that is, hey, patient, be aware of your rights to your own patient data, be aware of your ability to check your medical record, see if it's accurate, and certainly um, be aware of your need to keep your patient data confidential. Don't
Mhm.
be posting it up on Instagram, if you will, for example.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And next, how can healthcare organizations leverage AI and machine learning to enhance their cybersecurity posture?
Well, we know that the bad guys are training large language models to do
Mhm.
nefarious things. And so what we have to do on this side of the house, I guess, is train large language models and small language models to defend against the attackers, those who are going to weaponize AI against us. And we're doing that every single day. And it's an important countermeasure. It's an important activity that we have to undertake. And it involves a lot of different folks, a lot of different skill sets to do that properly. So identifying anomalies, identifying things that are just a bit off, if you will,
Mhm.
incorporating certain algorithms that can change. I call that a polymorphic algorithm, if you will, that will change as the environment changes. And
Mm,
those are all very important things for us to think about and consider.
absolutely. Thank you. And also using AI to catch human error as well, and things and anomalies that maybe we're not prepared or unable to catch ourselves.
Yeah,
Um,
that's an important one. That one's incredibly advanced. And we think about hallucinations. We think about, is something actually an error or not? And you know, better safe than sorry. Just double check that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the next question is, why is cybersecurity insurance important, and how should you go about identifying what you need for your company? I know you did a cracking the code on this a while ago, but I think it's important to revisit here, especially given some of the latest breaches and IT outages.
Well, it's important to think about how you offload some of your own risk. Now,
Mhm.
you'll never be able to offload all of the risk to a cyber insurance policy. The numbers are just too high, unless you want to spend all your money on cyber insurance.
Mhm.
But what you can do is you can address certain things that are more likely to happen than others. And so you'll see a cyber insurance policy have different subsections, if you will. One might include network connectivity. Can you actually connect to the internet? If you can't, there's a policy for that. One might be theft. Maybe someone's come in to steal certain funds from your bank account. That's another different policy. There's just lots of different kinds of policies that can be put in place to offload certain risks that can take a company into a bad place.
Sure. Really highlighting what your company specifically needs and understanding what your risk as a company is.
I mean, the renewal process for cyber insurance is not fun.
I'm sure.
Because it's almost like an audit itself.
Mm.
But it gives you that chance, once again, to align what your risk is along with how you can offload that risk.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we talked about this last time, but it's important to revisit. What steps should be taken during a cybersecurity breach or an IT outage, for example?
Yeah, we don't call them security breaches because that's a legal declaration, and we're not the ones who actually own the data. So just to level set, when you have a serious security incident, you get a hold of the data owners. Usually that's the customer who will then get in touch with a covered entity. Ultimately, it's the covered entity that is on the line here. And so what has to happen, what should happen, is there should be some kind of a 4-stage process for risk analysis to determine whether or not data has been exposed in an unauthorized way. And so once the covered entity goes through that, then they have a whole series of things that need to happen. One is notification of the regulators, notification of the media, obviously notification of those who are impacted, the patient, if you will. And I always try to think about the patient as the true victim.
Right.
A lot of people think, hey, this big hospital system, they are victims of this. Yeah, sure they are, but the ones who are really going to pay the price are going to be the patients. So I always think and I empathize with the patient that has to deal with all that bad stuff.
Absolutely. You're right. And that's, again, why Clear Data was founded too, that intersection of what cybersecurity actually means in the grand scheme of things and the continuancy of care. So, okay. Yeah. Thank you. Next, what emerging technologies should CISOs be paying attention to in the next 12 months here?
I mean, it's the same stuff that we've seen last year. Better use of AI, better use of machine learning, better and more specific use cases that can enhance your operations, make you more efficient. How to detect anomalies, how to better identify emerging threats, how to deploy countermeasures across a fleet of customers like Clear Data has. How do we make that more seamless, more instantaneous? The bad guys are throwing us phishing attacks, every couple of minutes now.
Right.
And how do we avert those? How do we thwart them? There's lots of ways to leverage AI in terms of fixing misconfigurations or giving guidance to the humans around misconfigurations. Hey, you just did this. You're not supposed to do that. Or hey, if you do this, maybe you're going to suffer this kind of result. You may want to back up a little bit. Kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you did speak about that too in a recent webinar. Individuals were very confident in their cybersecurity posture when in reality it was misconfigurations that were the main culprit, and a lot of times by insider threats and internal resources, from those small mistakes.
Well, we saw a big one that impacted all over the world, didn't we?
We did. Very recently. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The next question is, how can CISOs build strong relationships with other business leaders within their organizations?
Well, what I've always tried to do is not be the department of no, but be the department of how. And how do we do something in a secure way? How do we do something that doesn't violate common sense? How do we do something that allows us to achieve the business goal? And then, of course, communication. People discount the communication aspect of it. But if you're not talking, if you're not sharing, if you're not having regular communications with your peers, you're going to end up having kind of a silo
Sure.
that will then make you less effective as a CISO. So,
Absolutely.
being a business person, being a business executive, that's what you need to be in order to break down some of those silos.
That's a great point. And I think the next question ties in nicely. It's what is one question or concern that colleagues can and should bring to the CISO within their organization?
I always like to have an employee that asks meaningful questions. I can't think of just one question
Mhm.
besides, can I do this? Is this a safe practice? Those are some of the questions.
Right.
Uh, can we align on an approach before we develop it? That's always a good thing.
That's a good one.
Let's just put down put down the here's your parameters before you decide to go build something that's gonna, throw data everywhere. Um, how secure will this be? How can I make it more secure?
Mhm.
How can I make it more accessible? All these things need to be discussed.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, how is clear data specifically leveraging AI to transform business operations and support clients?
Well, we're doing it for anomaly detection. We're also doing it for, uh, leveraging natural language models to instruct our customers on how to correct a misconfiguration, or even to help them understand what a cloud service is, how you can use it, how you shouldn't use it, how you can strengthen the cloud services that you're using, how you can weaken those cloud services by combining certain services that may be less than optimal
Sure.
together.
Sure. That's a great point. Um, the next one is, as the CISO and the founder of Clear Data, you've been here from the beginning and through it all. So, what is one common pitfall that you might see young tech companies encountering in hypergrowth situations? And maybe how can they avoid it?
I remember actually giving a speech at the Stanford StartX conference. It was, boy,
Yes.
13 years ago. And they asked that same question. And the response that I had then is still true to this day, which is, you're going to have to deploy certain things that will require certain areas of security. But what you can't do in a startup environment is build Rome in a day. You're going to have to do
Uh-huh.
measured growth, measured responses. You're going to have to take a certain amount of risk, but not too much risk. It's really a balancing act in
Right.
terms of what comes first. Is it revenue or is it systems? Is it a new customer, or is it I've got to go buy a sim? Well, you have to determine which ones of those kinds of things come first. And I'm speaking as an entrepreneur and a business person at this point, and that is, I always advocated for the best and brightest tools, but I knew I couldn't get them
Mhm.
in those early days, and so we had to leverage partners, leverage there was no clear data at that point in time,
Sure.
but now there is, so leverage a partner that understands how to scale up instead of trying to do everything at once. You just can't do everything at once.
No, that's a great point. And even when you do get the right tools and making sure that you have the right people in the operations to manage that whole tech stack, the people processes and all of that good stuff. So I'll ask you the last question here. Thanks for your patience here. What are a few pieces of advice or maybe some advice you would give a tech company planning their business continuity and disaster recovery plans, especially coming out of some of the most recent incidents?
You're talking about the CrowdStrike incident, I'm guessing, right?
I am, yes.
So, first of all, I don't know how many organizations have practiced a disaster recovery scenario. We have a high trust certification. We have to adhere to certain controls. Um, I think it's over 700 now, by the way. And these are great things for us to understand and understand how to practice. But first of all, you need to have a plan. You need to understand who's supposed to be doing what in a disaster, who's calling whom, um, who's supposed to make the call, who's in charge of this whole incident. How do you recover certain things?
Hmm.
Uh, do you have a playbook, or at the very least a call tree? Really the goal is to recover. And I still remember having a conversation with some executives at a very large pharmaceutical company. They were attacked, well, probably 5 years ago. It was a NotPetya event. And, they had 73 different Active Directory services
Wow.
and servers obliterated within 13 minutes across the globe. And it was astounding. It took them probably 8 months to fully recover, and over $1 billion later.
Wow.
And so I'd say one of the things that you can do is vet your third party partners extensively.
Hmm.
Make sure uh, that your supply chain isn't going to harm you, and then of course practice different scenarios
Right.
on a regular basis. It's a trite saying, but you don't want to try to practice your first play in the middle of the Super Bowl. You need to be having, muscle memory on some of this stuff. So that's one of the best ways I can recommend.
Yeah.
Practice, practice, practice.
Those are great pieces of advice. Yeah, those third party, those supply chain risks as well. They can do a lot of damage as we've seen, and you've done webinars, you've spoken to that many times. And as a partner yourself, you have to go through these vetting processes and hold your other collaborators and partners and vendors to a similarly high standard. So
Yep. Yep. Not only is it a great practice, it's a requirement under the business associate agreement. So
it absolutely
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Chris, thank you as always for joining us today. Really appreciate your insights. We'll summarize what Chris discussed as well, and we'll link to that. So thank you for your time today.